We're doing something a little unique today, so you kids are staying in the service, and no ahs or anything like that. It's an exciting thing to do. Your parents will convince you of that someday, but it's going to be a little unique because we're going to be actually ending here, probably cut into my time, in about 15, 20 minutes at best. And there's going to be an activity that's going to be done because as a church, we have a purpose, and we've shared that before, and that purpose is to love God with all of our heart, to care for others like we would ourselves, and to be able to serve Christ in the world with passion and purpose. And so today I really want to focus in on that experience of caring for others and serving Christ in the world, and that really requires us to go out beyond these walls. So you're going to learn a little more about that in a minute. So kids, hang in there. But you can help me out a little bit. Without the help of your parents, kids, what do I have in my hands here? This is for the sake of anybody who's watching it or listening it online. They don't know what it is. Was it?
A shopping cart.
Oh, you've been out in the store, haven't you? Yeah, it's a shopping cart. This is actually one from Rayleigh's. Someone was concerned I stole it, but I didn't. But I wanted to use it because, it reminded me of something. There was a show back in the 60s that I had watched a little bit, and it was called Supermarket Sweep. Anybody remember that? Actually, it came back in the 90s a little bit. Yeah, there's a couple older people. None of you kids probably remember it. But it was a fun game. And in this game, it was a TV show. In this game, the object of it was that people would answer questions about prices of products and other stuff. And in doing that, they would earn like 10 seconds, and they would add time. And so there's a picture of it on the screen there for you to see what the game was about. But they would earn these through the various things, this time that they would have. And then the last part of the game was they would be given a shopping cart, much like this, a little bigger, a little deeper. And they would, based on their time, they would shoot out into the supermarket, go down all the aisles, and throw stuff in the basket that they thought would be of value, and then just fill their cart up with whatever they wanted in the store. And of course, they got smart and realized that things like meat and drugs from the pharmacy were really expensive stuff. So you could only get a certain amount of items, and so they had to move around. And there was also clues of things that you needed, that you scored extra money if you got one of those items. So you had to pay attention. And so anyway, they would all fill this up based on the amount of time they had, and then they'd come back to the register, and they would just put the items on the register like we do in the store, and it would tally up. And the person or the family that had the most money in their cart won. And they not only got a prize and are able to come back again, but they got to keep all the food that they put in their basket. Well, you're probably trying to already figure out, what does that have to do with both the video and the generosity and stuff like that? And the reason I say that is because really I think life is kind of like a shopping spree. Instead of a basket, we have our own life, don't we? And we go through life and we do things and we add things and we look for stuff that we value and we kind of add it to our life as a memory or maybe something that we have, like a car or houses or things like that. There's possessions, our clothes that we have a part of our life, and they kind of are in this basket we call life. Maybe it's stuff that's more like your education. We had like a lot of graduates where they've earned their education, and so that's something that we value and we've added to our life. And it might be something more like friends that we have and relationships. There are things like good things like character. You learn to love people. You learn to be friendly. You learn to do all those things, and those things become a part of who you are and part of that basket of your life. And of course, your faith, the coming to church, and all those things can be added there as well. So those things keep piling up through our life and whatever time we have. But what the Bible tells us is that there's a point in our life where we take our cart called life and we put it in the register and things pass through. But here's the deal. Some things in our life that we thought were really valuable really weren't valuable at all. They're kind of like in-store items, if you will. In other words, if you were to go to the store and put things in here and you put them through the register at the supermarket, what would happen is they say, oh, no, that can only stay in the store. You can enjoy it while you're shopping, but it's got to stay here, kind of like the shopping carts. Some of you have the little shopping carts. You can play with them, you can shop with them, but they stay at the store. You can't take them home. And some items you can. Well, there's a passage in the Bible that reminds us about that. Listen to this. It's in 1 Corinthians. in 1 Corinthians 3, verse 12, and it says this. It says, 1 Corinthians 3, verse 12. 1 Corinthians 3, 12 through 15. Oh, if I go to the right spot, there it is. It says this, verse 12. If a man builds on its foundation, uses gold or silver, costly stones, wood or hay or straw, his work will be shown for what it is, because the day will bring it to light. It will be revealed. It's talking about the day in our life when we have to stand before Jesus. It says, it will be revealed with fire, and the fire will test the quality of each man's work. If what he has built survives, he will receive his reward. But if it's burned up, he will suffer loss. He himself will be saved, but only as one escaping through the flames. There are things in our life we put in our basket that aren't going to go with us when we die. When you can die, you can be buried, and you can be buried with your favorite toys, or you can be buried with your fancy car or your clothes or all that stuff, but it's going to just stay in the ground. You don't get to take it with you. But there are some things you can. We're on a series today that we're talking about, which is developing habits that will change your life. And the reason I say that, kids, well, first, let me ask you, what's a habit? Any of you kids know what habits are? I'm sure your parents have told you about these habits. What's a habit? Right, things that you do over and over again, and really what it is, it becomes, you do it so often that you don't even realize you're doing it. It just becomes second nature. When the Bible talks about things that we do, habits in our life, behaviors that we just do that become very natural. And there are things as a Christian that are habits that you do that when you do them, it helps you grow stronger as a Christian. And in fact, if you practice the habits in your life, the things that you end up putting in your life, in your basket, become lasting and can last. And so it's important for us to be able to think about those things that we put in our life, and also think about the habits that we have that help us put the right things into our basket in our life. So the first week we talked about time with God. That's when you pray with God and you read the Bible, and as a family you do that. And those daily habits are ways that when you do that with God, anytime you spend time with God and you grow and you learn to love Him more and you see Him in your life and working, and you help Him when you have a test you're nervous about, or you have to give a speech for a graduation or something you're nervous about. Those are those moments when you spend that time with God, it becomes a moment and a memory that will last beyond this life. And then the next week, Scott had shared how we also are witnessing that our life is a story. Your lives are stories, and as you learn to be able to see how God has worked in your life, and you share it with your classmates and friends or your coworkers, that experience of sharing your story, being a witness, is a moment that gets added to your basket that passes on. There are people in your life, or that your life has touched, that will affect their life. And it's something that will be held to you as a reward of what you did. You know, there's the wonder some days if you stand in heaven, if God gives you the privilege of seeing all the lives that you impacted because you were willing to be a witness. Well, today we're talking about the act of generosity. And if you have a Bible and you want to follow along, turn into 1 Timothy 6, verse 17. If you have a Bible in the seats, it's page 884. And generosity is defined as readiness or liberality in giving. Now, that's a big word. But liberality means being very liberal, very generous, very, very free in your giving, as opposed to being, stingy and not wanting to give very much. And so it's that idea of generosity is the idea of just freely being able to give out. People in the story were very generous, at least for what we understand, because they were just free to give what they had. But we don't know if that was a sacrifice to give that, or they had so much. I mean, if we knew that the people they were talking about was Bill and Melinda Gates, we would think $10,000. He probably carries that in his pocket. But still, it's that act of generosity. So it's not about the amount. In fact, I used a story a few months ago when I was talking about cleaning out our closet. And so I filled the back of our car with all these clothes, and then Alyssa came along and said, well, I want to give my savings, which was only $8 at the time.